Hello everyone and welcome back to English with Lucy. Today I've got a very special guest. This is Caroline Goyder.
Hello.
And Caroline, would you like to introduce yourself? What do you do?
I'm now a voice coach, but for many years, well, if we go back to late 90s, I was a TEFL teacher briefly. So I know this world very well. I remember standing in front of my group of Argentinian students to teach them English and being utterly terrified being in the spotlight. And now I teach people how to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, so today we wanted to talk to you about how to be more confident in different situations. So we've chosen 5 situations and we're going to tell you, or Caroline's going to tell you, how you can feel and sound and appear more confident. And we're doing this to celebrate International Women's Day and their Be Bold for Change campaign. So where were you teaching English?
I was teaching in Gorzów in northwest Poland, which was fantastic, but a very unlikely place to go after your TEFL training.
What made
I
you
loved
choose?
it. There was a poster on the wall in my TEFL school and I just went, oh, there's a job. And so I went to Poland. It was great. I love Poland. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I've never been to Poland. I have quite a few Polish subscribers, so I'm sure they would love to hear you speak some Polish.
Dzień dobry. That's about it.
There's one word I know, that's na zdrowie.
Yep, that's good. That's like your Prost, you know, that's your drinking word.
Yeah.
Pivo is a good word for beer.
Okay.
I'm not, giving any aspersions to my time in Poland.
I bet you had a great time. And so what made you go into voice coaching then?
Well, I trained as an actor. I went to drama school and to be honest, I wasn't a great actor. And I wanted to work in theatre, but I didn't want to act. So I ended up training as a voice coach. And by kind of mistake, I found a job I really, really love. And once I'd trained as a voice coach, I was like, this is actually what I want to do for the rest of my life. It's a great job. But I fell into it really by mistake.
And how long have you been doing it now?
Nearly 20 years.
Wow. So that's some experience there.
Makes me feel very old.
And what I saw that you did a TED talk about confidence. That's actually how I found you. And how did you get into doing a TED talk?
Well, again, I mean, so often these things happen by accident. I was coaching for Tedx in Brixton.
Okay.
And the very brilliant curator there, Stephanie, said, have you got a talk in you? And I said, yeah, I think so. So I pitched talks, which is how you get into TEDx. They took it on. I did it in 2014 and it's had nearly 3 million views, which is insane.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is a lot of views.
Thank you, YouTube.
Yes, thank you. So today we're going to talk about confidence in certain situations. So we've chosen 5 situations for you. We're going to talk about being confident at parties, on dates, in presentations, in job interviews, and on the telephone. So I'm really excited about this video because so many of you have asked me to talk about presentations, public speaking, dating, and now I've got someone extremely qualified next to me, ready to share everything that you've learned throughout your career. So let's talk about parties first. What insight do you have to share about feeling confident whilst meeting new people at parties?
Well, so I learned a lot about this a few years back when I was interviewing A-list actors, because I wrote a book which was talking to A-list actors about confidence.
Okay.
And I would go to people like Helen Mirren and say, so tell me about confidence, thinking that they knew things, that they were confident. They weren't. None of them were.
Really?
And one of the people who said she wasn't confident was Helen Mirren. Big surprise to me there.
Yeah, like the most beautiful woman ever.
Okay. So serene, right?
Yeah.
And she said, when I have to go to a party after a show, actors go to the bar after a show, they have parties before launches, all that kind of thing. She said, I get really, really nervous.
Okay.
And she had a great tip, which is, first thing you have to do is think about your body. Really relax your shoulders, relax your breathing, center your voice. Because she says, I hate the way, and this is a good one for Women's Day, I hate the way that when we get nervous as women, we kind of start screaming and shrieking and our voices go high. She said, keep your voice nice and low and relaxed.
Okay.
So I think that's a really good one. Stay relaxed, relax your shoulders, center your voice. And then there are other tips. There's a really good George Clooney one, which also is in
Did you meet him?
No, I wish I had.
What a shame.
He and Johnny Depp were the ones that got away. Now, his thing when he meets people is that he imagines everybody he meets is an old friend.
In the way he acts and speaks with them?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And you can just picture his face, can't you? You know, there are the muscles around our eyes that crinkle up when we're with a friend. It's called a Duchenne smile, and it just relaxes us.
Okay.
And try it. It really, really works.
So you kind of close your eyes, or what do you do?
You just imagine that you've bumped into an old friend and that you're talking to them, and you let your brain chemistry do the rest. So just think about smiling, talking to an old friend and how you smile at them. That's it. And then your face relaxes, your voice relaxes. You know, it's brain chemistry.
Amazing. I've never heard a tip like that before, so really good. So
that's number 2. And the third one I would say is, as you walk through the door of a party, just think, I've only got to be there for 5 minutes.
Okay.
And this was taught to me by someone who's a real introvert. And she said, it was another actor, and she said, I used to really dread parties, but it's like going to the gym. You know, I'm not a great one for going to the gym, but if I say to myself, I'm only going to go for 5 minutes, when I get there, I'm much more likely to stay because it's quite fun. If you say to yourself, I'm only going to go for 5 minutes, and then you get there and you've had a drink and you're enjoying yourself, you're going to stay for a bit longer. So just say, even if you're dreading it, I'm just going to stay for 5 minutes. Then find someone, talk to them as if they're an old friend, and keep your shoulders relaxed, and you'll be fine.
And your voice nice and low.
Your voice nice and low, don't scream.
Yeah, that's true. I think when I'm on camera, I probably speak with a much lower voice. And when I'm meeting new people for the first time, I would definitely say it goes up a couple of tones. So, I'll be aware of that. Okay, so another big question that I get is about dating, and this came up recently because I made a video about how to say dates in English, and a lot of people were excited thinking that I was going to teach them about dating, but actually I was speaking about numerical dates. So, how can you be more confident whilst meeting someone maybe for the first time or even the second time on a date?
So I asked a friend of mine who is brilliant at dating, and I said, what is it that you do? And she said, well, actually, it's something that you taught me. And I was surprised by that. And she said, you taught me years ago, and this is another acting tip, that when you meet someone and you're on a date, what you have to do is think, this is a real actor's tip, you have to think, I'm beautiful, someone loves me, I have a secret.
So these are 3 things.
3 things you have to think to yourself. I'm beautiful, because it kind of gives us a little spark. You know, there are days when you're not feeling like that, and it just gives you a kind of sparkle. Someone loves me, which gives you, it's brain chemistry again. It gives you a kind of warmth and a presence. And I have a secret, gives you a bit of a twinkle.
Do you actually have to have a secret?
It helps.
Okay, I'll try.
I don't think it has to be. It doesn't have to be WikiLeaks level. Just, you know, something. Or actors also talk about a naughty thought.
A naughty thought?
Bit of a that's a good one.
I have a couple of those.
That's definitely working. So a twinkle in the eyes, and she said it just gives me a presence when I'm dating, or, you know, she's going to parties as well, that makes her shine, and that makes people, it seems like you're a fun person to talk to. Whereas so often in our head, we've got a kind of inner voice that's saying mean stuff.
Definitely.
We all do. We all have it.
Before I go out for a date, I don't date much, but when I do, I always look at myself in the mirror beforehand and I think, well, that's not right, and maybe he won't find me funny. But I guess if I think about all the good things first.
Exactly.
And recognise those.
And this relates to another acting tip that someone taught me, which is that if you're worrying about how it might go wrong, don't do that. Worry about what it'll be like when it goes right. So if you visualise yourself on the date, having fun, laughing, looking really relaxed, getting on with each other, you're going to walk into the room much more relaxed, and that sets a really good cycle up.
So it's keeping yourself positive and only thinking about the positive parts. Okay.
It's the inner game of dating, says the married woman.
Okay, what makes a good dater though? I'm concerned for your friend. Does she go on a lot, or does she just do the few very well?
She does the few very well, I should say this, yes.
Maybe she's watching. Hello.
Hi, Nikki.
So what about tip number 3?
So number 3 is that, you know, when we're on a date, we feel like we have to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and actually you don't. Okay. I'd say the best daters are people who are really good at asking questions.
And then listening, I imagine.
And that's a real introvert tip. I mean, I'm an introvert, and if I go to a party, I'm not dating anymore, but if I go to a party and I meet people and I'm feeling shy, I just ask loads of questions.
Actually, that's something I learnt teaching, because I used to run conversation classes, and you just have the shyest students. But once you start asking them about themselves, they feel important, and then suddenly they've got a lot to say. So I guess that's good to avoid if you have an awkward silence, which is what we dread most in dating, really, and meeting new people. Having a set of good questions prepared, probably.
Partly, yes. I think if you have 2 or 3 starter questions, then really listen and just do great follow-up questions. So if they say, I really love Seville, say, oh, great, where did you go in Seville? And then if they say, well, there's a great tapas bar, tell me about tapas, I've never had it. You just follow the thread of the conversation, and you just turn what they say into another great question.
And then you show you're engaged and that you've been listening, which is important, because sometimes you're having a conversation with someone and you can see their eyes glaze over a little bit.
And that's horrible.
Yeah, it's the worst.
And it will kill any spark. So having to really listen because you're going to ask a great follow-up question is really powerful, because they feel that they have that connection.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for those tips. So next, I'd like to ask you about public speaking and giving a presentation, because a lot of my subscribers are at university or they work in jobs where they'll have to present to big groups of people in a second language, which is really tough, because public speaking, I find it difficult in my own language, and doing it in a second or even third language is tough. So do you have any tips for my subscribers?
That is really hard. As you say, public speaking is bad enough, and doing it in a language where you don't feel safe, where you don't feel that if you go wrong you can escape, is really scary.
Yes.
So the things I always say to people are, firstly, if you're doing it in a language that's not your first, you've got to practice twice as much. So when I talk to clients about rehearsing presentation, I'll say to them, take your phone, find voice notes on your phone and record it.
Now that is a tip I really gel with, because when I speak in my second language, which is Spanish, I will record myself and then I'll listen back to it, and I will notice loads of mistakes that I didn't realise that I made at the time. And also, you get to know it better.
Exactly.
But I feel a natural inclination to avoid practising. Is that something that you feel as well?
That's
Why?
Human. That's so human.
Why does that happen?
We don't want to practice because it's kind of onerous. It feels a bit unpleasant. We don't like hearing our own voices. But it is like going to the gym again. If you want to get fit, you really have to get out there and go for a run. It's like before you go for a run, you just have to motivate yourself to put the recorder on and practice. And as you say, when you practice, you hear what's working, you hear what's not, and you learn it. And so I say to clients who are English, practice it 3 times like that if it's important. If English isn't your first language, I'd say you probably need to practice it 6 times for it to feel okay on the day.
Yeah, because when you have something practiced, it kind of just comes out more easily. So I really agree with that one. What about tip number 2?
Tip number 2 is that you've got to get the body relaxed and prepared. So it's what I call getting the butterflies.
You got me moving there. Okay.
Breathing and grounding. The butterflies have to fly in formation. So in English we say that you get butterflies in your stomach.
Yes, that's a great idiom. If we're nervous and you feel that funny feeling in your tummy, we call it having butterflies. So you're saying that we need to get our butterflies in formation.
Like the red arrows, like the planes that fly in formation.
So you need to take hold of those butterflies and channel them into something positive.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because the idea is it for performers as well, for anybody who's on stage, that adrenaline is actually a really good thing.
Because adrenaline is a feeling that I hate. Those nerves before a first date, I can't stand it. Because I'm normally quite a confident person, and I guess the feeling of feeling really nervous and the butterflies I don't like. But you're saying that it's a positive thing.
It's a good thing.
Okay.
So, that's so human. Everybody feels nervous, right? It's taking them and going, okay, I'm feeling these butterflies. This is a feeling of my power because I'm going to stand on stage and speak. And it's also a feeling of excitement because it's a kind of alertness, the adrenaline. It's going to make you perform better as long as you don't say, oh no, here it comes. Now, the way that performers and athletes are taught to do this is it's a lot about how you ground yourself and how you breathe. So I'd say to anybody, before you do something like a speech, don't spend 3 hours checking your email or playing a game. Do something calming. yoga, go for a run, go for a swim, sit quietly, meditate if that's your thing. Create calm, because then when the adrenaline hits, your state is calm. And so then you channel it. If we're too wired, if we've had 4 cups of coffee and we've talked to all our friends on the phone and we've answered 4 emails and we've WhatsApp, you know, all of that, we're not going to handle the adrenaline. So get quiet, get into the body, and then you'll be all right when the butterflies hit. You'll get them flying in formation.
Wonderful. Okay, and what about the third tip then?
The final tip is when you walk out on stage, you know, when you face the audience, you have to see them as old friends. So it's a bit like the George Clooney tip. And what I do when I have an audience is I'll spend a little bit of time at the beginning, before the show goes up, as it were, before the show starts, before I speak, I'll go and talk to people in the audience, and I'll find out from maybe 3 people what they want. Why have they come today? What are they interested in? If I can't do that, I'll actually ask the audience on stage, does anybody have any questions?
I saw you do this in your TED Talk, and I thought it was a really interesting thing to do because I haven't seen anyone else do it before. And so that's interesting to know the reasoning behind it. And how does it make you feel when you speak to the people?
So for me as an introvert, what's scary is feeling that everybody's looking at me. That's a horrible feeling. But if I'm curious about the audience, if I'm thinking, how can I help the audience get what they want, I'm not thinking about me anymore. And then I'm in what's called a flow state.
Okay.
And then it's just like having a chat. It's like us sitting here now having a chat. That's how you want to be on stage. It just happens there's 1,000 people in front of you. And if you've spoken to a few of those people, you have a sense of why they're there, and then you forget yourself.
And you have a role, a purpose. It's not just you being on stage, look at me. Yay.
I couldn't speak if I thought it was about me. But when I stepped up for the Tedx, it wasn't about me. It was about helping the audience get something useful.
Wonderful. Thank you for those. I think those ones are particularly useful, especially for me, because public speaking is something that I'm having to do more and more nowadays. I did my first panel the other day, and I just found it that everyone was old timer on it, and I was the first new person, and I did find it a little bit traumatic, and I definitely could have channeled my adrenaline, my butterflies, much more efficiently.
Go for a run or do some yoga or something beforehand. Definitely.
That's a good idea, because I went for the coffee.
Don't have the coffee.
No, I'll ditch the coffee. Green tea and a run.
Yeah, lots of water.
Okay. Right, so another thing I get, lots of people are studying English. They're trying to get exams to then be able to get a job. So they want their English qualifications to then be able to get a better job. And obviously they'll have to do a job interview. So that's something I get asked about quite a lot. Do you have any tips for those people?
Yes, and I spend quite a lot of time with people thinking about job interviews because they're horrible, aren't they?
They're the worst.
Just they're evil. So there are tips and tricks to help you get over that feeling of being watched. Because I think the first thing to say is you are, in a job interview, you really are being observed.
Absolutely.
There's no
Every
getting
away.
Which it's quite a hideous feeling. So you firstly just have to get yourself nice and calm and centred. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something, again, before you walk into the room, think about not how am I looking, but what is it that they're looking for. And there's an actor's tip around when you walk into the room, just try and help them find the right person for the job or find the right person for the course. You are helping them make a choice. It's not about a judgment on you. It's about helping them think clearly. And it's when you flip your attention out onto what they're trying to do, it takes you into compassion, and it takes you out of help, everybody's looking at me, everybody's judging me.
Oh, so you change your perspective slightly.
Yeah.
I like that, definitely, because, you might not be the right person for the job.
And that's okay.
And that's just something you have to accept. And that might make rejection a little bit easier as well. I always think if there's somebody I like and they don't like me back, I always try and think, well, it wouldn't have worked anyway because I wasn't the right person. So if we apply that to the job interview situation,
it's the same thing.
Yeah, and that improves your confidence going forward.
Exactly.
So what about tip number 2 then?
So breathing is really important in an interview.
Breathing?
Yep. Because you get a horrible question, don't you? Think of the moment where someone asks you a really horrible question.
The worst one for me would be describe your weakness or something like that. I hate that question but they ask it all the time. They want to see how you respond. So you say that I should breathe.
Remember to breathe. Now, okay, so how you breathe is important. Because what most of us do when a really horrible question comes is we kind of go, we breathe here, we go. It's a bit extreme, that, but there's a kind of chest breath that's happening.
Yeah.
That breath is not helping you. What you want to do is breathe into your back. So if you notice your back ribs, just kind of feel your back ribs and notice that if you breathe out, do a little kind of blowing out birthday candles breath, and then wait for the breath in. And just think about, breathing into the back, exactly.
It's softer.
It's calmer.
And it relaxes your shoulders
It's relaxing you, and it's making you seem calm under pressure, which is when people give you a job, because you seem calm under pressure. So breathe into your back. And the secret tip is imagine a lovely smell.
Oh, okay. Luckily you smell great.
Oh,
so
good.
That was easy to imagine.
That's always useful to know.
Sorry guys, you can't smell her, but she's lovely. Right, so what about the third tip then?
So the third tip is a very serious one. It comes from one of the economics editors on BBC Radio Today, BBC 4's Radio Today, which is the breakfast show on BBC Radio 4, which is worth listening to. And the guy there who is the economics editor is a chap called Simon Jack. And I asked him for the second book, which is called Gravitas, what he sees in good CEOs that he interviews when they come on air on Radio 4. And he said the thing they all do is they set out their stall. When they answer a question, they don't launch straight into it. They'll say something like, so Simon, 3 points.
Ah, okay. So they'll kind of introduce, say what they're going to say, and then say it in an ordered manner.
Exactly.
Ah, see, I get in a bit of a panic. I'll try and give as much information as I possibly can to try and appear knowledgeable about the topic. But you're saying it's better to just prioritise and order. Okay.
I mean, if the question's easy, then you probably don't have to do this. But it's when the question's tricky and you go into brain freeze.
Yes.
It's that moment of 3 things, and it forces you to structure.
And so you need that breath to think about the order as well. So tip 2 and 3 go together quite nicely.
They're synchronised, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting. Right, the last topic that we're going to cover today is talking on the telephone. Because my students really, really struggle with listening in English. I always, when they do their exams, I'm sure you've seen this as well, speaking will be quite high, reading and writing will be really high, but listening is always the bit that they struggle on. And it's because you can't read the lips, you can't read the body language. And so, and then also the voice on the telephone gets a bit distorted. So how can my students feel more confident on the telephone, because it's an essential part of life?
Your telephone calls are hard, aren't they? That whole thing that we can't see the other person.
You can't see their reaction, so you don't know whether they like what you're saying.
It's tricky. And the first tip for calls is another actor tip, and it was an actress called Anna Massey who's no longer with us. She's died, sadly. But she said, when I'm on the phone to someone, I picture them sitting on a sofa, a bit like this, sitting at home. And even if I haven't met them, I imagine what they look like.
Okay.
And it's a nice imagination tip. It helps you kind of tune into that person and be curious. And I do this even with corporate clients. If I'm talking to someone, I imagine where they're sitting, what they're wearing, what they might look like, so that I engage with them as a real person rather than this strange disembodied voice. So visualise the person you're talking to is the first one.
Okay, I like that. And then you can kind of imagine their body language anyway and try and listen to their voice and work out what they're feeling in response to what you're saying.
Exactly. Forces us to really pay attention, which is nice.
Yes, so you don't miss anything.
So the second tip is more of a speaking tip in a way, because it's something that partly comes from my TEFL teaching, years ago, was that one of the things that when we're speaking English, and it's something I think you talk about as well, that helps us as listeners is emphasis.
Okay.
And the English has what's called really an Iambic Pentameter, which is like Hamlet.
Yeah.
If you think of to be or not to be, that is the question. There's a kind of de-dum, 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 de-dum.
Yes. Yeah.
And lots of languages, as you know, Spanish doesn't have that. It's a different kind of rhythm. So when you're speaking on the phone, if you really hit the nouns and the verbs, in particular, the meaning words, you give them a little bit of punch. You can actually punch the words as you're talking if they can't see you. So, hi, my name's Caroline. We're going to be talking about emphasis. I'm hitting with my hand the important words. If they're on the phone, they won't know.
Just as long as they don't forget they're on a Skype call.
Yeah, don't do it on Skype.
That was like me with my podcast the other day. Really embarrassing moment. I was on a podcast interview and I thought it was just audio. So I was sat there in my dressing gown, my bathrobe, until I reread the email 10 minutes before and realised it was being filmed. So, very embarrassing.
Modern life.
Yeah, but luckily I wasn't punching out the words. But I should do that if I'm on the telephone.
If they're on the telephone, you can do anything, pretty much.
Great. And what's your final tip? And the final tip of today, actually.
The final tip of today is if you are nervous about a call, if you need to make a great impression, stand up.
Stand up? Okay. I always see my dad doing that. My dad is a managing director and he's always marching around the house on the phone. I thought it was because he has bad knees, but maybe it's because it makes him feel more confident.
It's powerful. I mean, it may be the bad knees as well, but it's also, it powers up your voice. It's easier to have powerful voice when you're standing. It gives you more energy. It helps you feel more relaxed. It helps you breathe. And it makes you sound better, simply.
Okay. Yeah, I actually find myself naturally wanting to stand up and go and look out of a window or something whilst I'm on the telephone. So yeah, I can see that working.
And there's a final tweak to that, which is what voiceover artists do. If you're voicing over a movie like Sing or something, they gesture. So they'll be standing in a voiceover studio and they go crazy with gesture because what they know is that gesture orchestrates the intonation of the voice. So if my hands are high, my voice goes high. If my hands are low, my voice goes low. So stand up, hold the receiver to one ear or get yourself on speakerphone and wave your arms about. And you will, to match what you're saying, not just randomly, but it will give you more power, more energy, and you'll be easier to listen to.
Wonderful. Really, really good tips. Thank you very much. And actually, for anyone who wants to take their telephone English a bit further, Caroline has got an audio course all about having confidence while speaking on the telephone, and it's absolutely free. So if you're interested in that, then there is the link in the description box and you can check that out. Well, Caroline, it was a pleasure to have you on today. Thank you so much. I feel like I've learnt loads. I hope you guys have learnt a lot as well. If you're interested in hearing more from Caroline, then all of her information and social media is in the description box. And you can also go and look at her TED Talk, which has 3 million views now. Amazing. She's beat me on the views for that one. So yes, thank you very, very much for being my guest today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And remember, be bold for change and make a change in your life and be more confident. Don't forget to connect with me on all of my social media. I've got my Facebook and my Instagram, and I will see you soon for another lesson. Bye. Mwah. Oh, that's it. Thank you, guys.